Hello, welcome to Petra Media. My name is Terrence Anderson, and today we are admitting that I made a mistake. Now, a couple of videos back, a couple of weeks ago, I was in one of the group chats on Facebook, and a gentleman was saying that there's a way to transfer files from the MPCs to the MPC2 software and, of course, to the standalone machines without having to do all the extra steps that I was doing. Now, what I do does work. That's the beautiful thing about that scenario. And it's actually a pretty comfortable way. I'm used to doing that because I'm so used to just bringing everything in from the MPC into the MPC2 software, making the stems, and then taking it over to Logic to do the final mix. But his way for accessing the 2000 files, because that's specifically what he was saying. He was saying that the software and hardware machines are able to access the older MPCs before the 1000. So it's able to actually get the data from the 2000 XL. I think he said the 2000. I don't have a 2000 to test. I don't have a 60, 62, 3000, or a 2000 to test. And I only have a ton of sessions from my old 2000 XL that I can access via my MPC 1000, as you saw in the last couple of videos on that. But I didn't know that there was a way to do it. And today we're going to show and discuss how that actually works on the software. Now, it's easy on the software once I figured out what had to actually be done. But prior to doing a little bit of research on the subject, after testing if the 5000 could play 2000 XL files, which it can, we learned the hard way, all the extra things you had to do to make it work. This is exactly what he was talking about, where it's a lot simpler, even though he broke it down in a very brief way and didn't explain any of the steps at all. I'm gonna go over the steps and discuss how it actually works. That way, if you have older sessions and you really don't wanna go back to those glory days of having the older machines, this is the way to do it. And also, incidentally, this actually gives me a reason to consider buying a new machine. I might actually look at like the MPC-X or something like that. I'm not a fan of any of the other machines. Please stop saying go get a Live 2 or anything like that. I'm not gonna get it. I don't like plastic machines. I have kids. I am rough with my stuff and it needs a metal chassis. It just is what it is. The last trip that we went on, one of the kids dropped my bag. And, I wasn't mad at them, it happens. But, my MPC 1000 was perfectly fine. When I used to travel back in the days with the 2000 XL, never worried once about it being damaged. Even if it was whether it was in a protective case or just in a bag, I was never worried once. But I've seen so many videos of people cracking the corners or the parts off of the plastic units. So I'm not a fan of the plastic units. I'm not saying that the software or the hardware machines are bad. I'm starting to fall in love with them, especially since I've been using the Studio 2 all the time now, alongside for various projects. But I don't want a plastic machine. So if I'm gonna go ahead and commit to a MPC, a brand new MPC, most likely it's going to be the X or the X Special Edition. It just is what it is. It has to be metal. I like my machines to have some ruggedness to them, so I don't have to worry about it. I don't want to think about what could happen to it if I'm traveling or whatever. I just want to make sure it works when I get there. Enough about that. Also, before we get into what I'm talking about, if you are looking for various sounds, drum kits, I'm starting to put together some more stuff beyond like the cinematic pack that I already have up on my website. I have a ton of drum machines and drum samples from the beginning of my journey till now, loaded up on my website, www.petrolmediainc.com. Feel free to go to the site. I've put everything at a reasonable price. There's something there for everybody. And the one thing, if you know anything about my drums, I always make sure my drums bang like crazy. Like you're gonna feel it. So definitely check that out, petrolmediainc.com. Now let's get into the subject matter. So I hope you guys can see this clearly, but on the screen, I have the MPC2 software, and the guy was saying that in the software, you can actually access your MPC 2000 XL files. Now, I tried to do this many different ways, even from just going to the folder and dragging the data in, trying to access it from the menus. It doesn't work. It doesn't work any of those ways. What you actually have to do is come over here to the bottom right side and click on the file browser icon. And then the other thing I had to do was navigate to where it was located. But even when I did that, it still wouldn't access the data. So I ended up realizing that the only way to really make it work was to go all the way back out to the system and make a folder inside of my actual user profile in Documents. And once I put it in Documents, I was able to not only find the data, but I was able to go through just basically all the different session files and see what works, what doesn't work. So let me go find the data. So I have a folder here called MPC backup data. So in the backup data, you'll see that I have a couple of different things going on in here, but the biggest thing is I have the 1000 files, and we already know the 1000 files work with the software, but I also have the 2000 Excel backup data from back in the day. And if I open it up, I have a bunch of stuff in here. If I go back one and go to the other one, I have a bunch of stuff in here. So let's see if this works. From what I found, you go into the folder. So we're gonna go into the 2000 session folder. This is the folder that you guys heard over the 2 videos, the files that I made back in the day. That was when I was in college in the dorms. I remember we went over a record that I sampled from Al Green. So you could already hear the files. So everything is there. The thing we need to figure out is, do we launch it with APS and then the ALL? Well, I'm not sure which one you need to do first, but let's try APS first. But either way, if it's not in this browser window, it doesn't load into here, no matter how hard I try. I've literally dragged these files from a folder into here, and it just would not work. So this is the way it works. That loaded all of the files and put them all on the pads. So all the files are loaded. So now that should load the MIDI data. And if this works, it should just play when I hit play. It doesn't work. No, that means I think I did it wrong, or I need to assign something. I think I need to actually pick. Maybe that's what it is. I think there's, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So let's start this all the way over. The way it works, from the top, you load the APS. It loads up the sequences and the program. It doesn't assign it to the pads correctly. Like you could find it. Okay. Let's try this all again from the top. All right, so now we have a fresh session. Let's try this again. So I'm gonna load the APS file, which should put all the samples where they're supposed to be. All right, so all the samples are in. Everything is in, right? I think I used all of the banks, A, B, C, and D. Yeah, I did. Okay. Now, the next thing is the ALL file that puts all the MIDI data, and we can confirm that by going through the tracks. Let's see, track select. There we go. So all the MIDI data is in. So now the next thing is to select the program, new program A. Now, everything is loaded. All the files are on the tracks or I should say on the pads for triggering, and all the sequences are set up and everything. So let's give it a shot. We're gonna try sequence 2 just to confirm. Sequence 2 is not playing. I'm not sure what was on sequence 2 anyway. Maybe it was just something I started and I didn't finish. But to confirm that this is even fully working, let's launch another one just to be sure. So I'm going to launch this one. So I click on APS. It loads up the files. Click on ALL. It says we'll replace. That's okay. It's going to replace. and then you select the new program again, and then, all right, and the next one, nothing. Oh, maybe you have to select the program again. Yeah, okay, and then let's see, let's go to number 3. I think I gotta do the same thing again. All right, so now just to figure out what in the world is going on, I think a lot of stuff is muted. You know, you guys can let me know, does the MPC hardware and software have an unmute button for like all? That would be actually cool information. Also, I wish somebody could tell me how to do in here, because I've been doing some deep diving on it and I found it once. I feel like I found it by accident, but I haven't found it again since. How do you do choke groups in the software / the new MPCs? It's so easy on the 5000 and the 1000 and you know, the 2000 XL, you have to do a little bit of a workaround to do it, but it's so easy on here. But I can't figure out how to do it here. I'm used to doing it on, scroll down real quick, on the 5000, I go into programs and I go to the program itself and I set all of the pads for the program, all the samples for the program in one group, and then I mute that group. So that way, that group is now group 1, but then I set another program for the drums or for something else, and they can be doing whatever they want. They have nothing to do with this mute group. You can also, if you don't want to do it that way and have everything all in one program, I can just select the mute group. They give you anywhere from 1 to 32 mute groups on the 5000. I think the 1000 has the same number of mute groups. And then you set everything in mono, and it will literally take care of itself. This is easy on here. My problem is when I get into the MPC software, and I'm assuming I'll have the same problem on the MPC X. When I go to do mute groups, it's not as straightforward. I've gone into the menu several times, and we're going way off subject, but I go into the menu several times and I go looking for it. I go scrolling for it, and I'm not finding anything that says choke group or mute group. You know, I've looked a lot. So if anybody has an answer for that, I would love to know how to do that, because mute targets, that's how you did it with the 2000 XL. I don't want to do that. That's not beneficial, and that's tedious. So anyway, back to what we're doing. So this works. This is really good to know. So interestingly enough, something's not playing, and that's interesting here. Let's see. Nope, not that one. It didn't load it again. Okay, that's another thing to consider. So when you switch sequences, mind you, remember, this is the 2000 XL, these are the 2000 XL sequences, it unloads the samples. So you have to reload the samples every time. So if I go back to sequence 2, we just played sequence 2. I'm playing sequence 3 now. We just played sequence 2. And that is weird. Now all of a sudden it's working. Someone explain that to me. And now that one's blank. Sequence 1 is blank. Let's try that again. Let's try going backwards. They're all loaded. That is so weird. Let's try this again with one more. I'm going to try one more session. We're going to pick one of my favorites. So I'm going to launch APS, loads all the files. This replaces all of the MIDI data. And then, like we said, sequences don't have anything loaded. So you click on New Program. Okay, and then we click the next sequence, sequence 2, nothing again, click on New Program. Sequence 3, same thing. And sequence 4. So if I go back through, The samples are still on the pads. Okay. So then I went and clicked on some menus. We're just trying to go through and figure out why things disappeared at this point. Everything seems to be fine with sequence 4. Okay, so now I go back to this and I go to the next sequence. And the next one, and next. So now it's all here. I don't know what just happened. Maybe it's just a glitchy thing, but either way, this is an easier way than what I was saying to do to access the files on your computer directly, or if you have them loaded in the folder on a compact flash or in your hard drive on your hardware MPC. This is the easier way to transfer your data from your older machine, especially the 2000 XL. Will it work with the 3000, the 2000, those that run on .SND files? Who knows? Actually, let's find out, because I actually have some SND files. So let me just find some real quick. Okay, so these are some of my SND files that are sitting here. These were actually ones I created to test because I was working on a sample kit for an older machine for an associate of mine. We're going to try to see if we can just take it and drag it and drop it in here. And no, let's do a new project. Let's just start over. Don't save anything. So I'm going to try this again. No, it won't do it. I wonder, let's try something else. Stand by for one moment. Okay, so what I decided to do was to move everything for that test folder that I'm working on with the .SND files over to my documents folder on the machine. And what I'll do is I'll go into my documents. I'll scroll to where I have that folder. And then the files are here. So let's see if they play. No. I think it doesn't work. So this format is not supported by the MPC software, and you can find it if you move things around, but you cannot load .SND files. And that's totally fine because they are an older file format that wasn't something that was carried forward once they moved over to .wave. And just so you know, it's pronounced wave. I've heard people say .wav. It's not a WAV file. It's a wave file. I know the spelling is wrong. It was just an abbreviation for the word wave because back then you couldn't, and I think you still can't really do it nowadays either. When you had file extension names, it was always 3 characters. It was never more than 3 characters. So rather than make things complicated, they just labeled it as wave. I think Apple changed that when they came along with their Apple file format. So you had the AIFF, but that's the only one I've ever seen. I've never seen another one longer. And I think by the time that shift had already happened and they had the ability to put 4 characters after the period, everybody's so used to seeing .wave, WAV, that there really wasn't a reason to make that switch again. So in conclusion, he was right, I was wrong, and I am man enough to understand when to admit when I make a mistake. So I appreciate the information. I'm glad I dug into it a little bit more because the way I saw it was there had to be a way around it. They all read WAV files. They all read 16-bit, 24-bit WAV. Well, the older 2000 XL only reads 16-bit and the 1000, 5000 reads 16-bit. But regardless of all of that, they all read that format and the newer ones can handle 24-bit. So they should be compatible without a problem with any WAV file that you're going to put into the machine. So this was great to test just to see how we can get it to work. We also in the process learned that the older files, the .SND files, don't work with the newer machines. And I don't think the 1000 or the 5000 can load SND files either. I can look it up as well, just to be sure. But that kind of sucks because I have a ton of recycle sounds. However, I have a converter that I'm going to be using to create some classic kits based on those old .SND files. And I'll upload those for you guys. You know, pricing will be reasonable, but it's really, really good stuff. Some of those classic hits, stabs, those chord progressions that you've known or you've heard the sound I'm not giving you what patterns other people have made. I'm just giving you the sounds that you can make your own thing. Because I think right now the loop culture is a little rough. Too many people are just literally just copying loops and not even chopping it up and doing something different with it. So it's going to be great. I think it's going to be great. Just bringing some of those things back to life for people to use today and to manipulate in new ways. So if you like what I've been talking about, like, share, and subscribe, and join me next week for the next video. And until then, I'll catch you later.